This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 47, Embracing the People Factor. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is November 28th, 2013. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode number 47 of the Content Marketing Podcast. It is November 28th, which happens to be Thanksgiving Day here in the United States, and I want to wish all my fellow Americans, wherever you may be, a very happy Thanksgiving. And if you are listening to this podcast in the car or on a train or plane on your way to visit friends or family, I wish you very safe travels. I also want to say we here at Resonance are very thankful for all our friends and listeners around the world. You have made this podcast a tremendous success, and we are very, very deeply grateful. So thanks all around. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and on Stitcher, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. That means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your computer or your smartphone or your tablet or your listening device of choice. And if you use a different app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link to you in the blog post. In last week's podcast, we talked about using the DISC profile system to get a clearer picture of your target audience and further customize your content. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to click on over to iTunes or Stitcher or the RSS feed and get all caught up. So that brings me to today's topic. Today we are talking about the people factor and the huge difference it can make in the success of your content. Before I get to our main topic, I do have a couple of really big news items. First of all, a big welcome to Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose. I want to welcome them to the wonderful world of podcasting. Joe Polizzi, of course, is the founder of the Content Marketing Institute. He was also our guest on this podcast a few weeks ago. And Robert Rose is his frequent collaborator. And the two have just launched a podcast called This Old Marketing. And it's the reason for the title is they emphasize the fact that content marketing is, of course, nothing new. Anyway, I just listened to the first episode, and it is fantastic. I cannot wait to hear more from these guys. So that is highly recommended, and I will provide that link to you in the blog post. Also, congratulations to another prior guest on this podcast, Gary Vaynerchuk, whose book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, was released earlier this week. So you can now purchase it at your local bookstore of choice, or you can enter to win your own copy at resonancecontent.com/JJJRH. We are having a giveaway for Gary's book, but it only goes through November 30th, and you have just a couple of more days to enter. So make sure to do that in the next couple of days. Okay, that's the end of announcements. On to today's topic, the people factor. So let me start by telling you how the inspiration for this episode came about. I have a major client in the oil and gas industry, so not known for its touchy-feely demeanor, right? Very, very straight-laced, very scientific, a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists. And I wanted to talk about two posts that I recently did for them. So these were both posts that were around trade shows. So this client is very active on the trade show scene. And both of these posts involved awards that had been presented to representatives of the company. So the first post was, again, related to a trade show, and it was a Best Booth Award. So this particular trade show had a competition for Best Booth. It was the design of the booth, the visual appeal, the flow, the friendliness of the booth staff, all that. And this company won, I believe it was second place in the Best Booth competition. And when we posted it on Facebook, we posted a picture of the award. So it was just a beautiful award, just kind of sitting on a table. And the text accompanying it was, "Congratulations to our booth staff for winning this award for second best booth at this particular trade show," etc., etc. Now that post racked up, let's see, it got 105 likes, which is really good, got 2 comments and 9 shares. So pretty good activity, right? As Facebook goes, got a really good, got some really good interaction there. The second post was from a different trade show, and it published about a couple of weeks later. And in this post, we were talking about how one of the company's experts had won an award for best technical poster in his category. So at these conferences, they do their experts do technical paper presentations, and they also do technical posters where they explain some particular aspect of their technology. And this gentleman won the award for best technical poster in his category. Now, this post, the picture that we used was a picture of the gentleman himself actually being presented the award by a representative of the conference. And the text was, "Congratulations to," let's just say, John Smith for winning best poster in such and such category. Now, this post racked up 164 likes, 10 comments, and 25 shares. So I was looking at these two posts and thinking about this. So these were similar posts. They were both about trade shows. They were both about awards. One did well and one did extremely well, even though they were very similar in the topics that they talked about. And I really believe that at least part of the reason for this difference is what I call the people factor. So the first post, if you'll recall, had a picture of the award, just the award sitting on a table, and congratulated the team, whereas the second post had an image of the person accepting the award, and it mentioned him by name. And for this post, I mean, people just came out of the woodworks. People who worked with the person, people who had met him at the show, people who saw his presentation, they all showed up to like, comment, and share the post. And I really believe that this is due to the fact that as human beings, we are hardwired to respond to names and faces rather than to generic references. So my challenge to you today is look at what you're doing in terms of your content and look at your blog, look at your social media, look at everything you're doing and ask yourself, how can I make this more personal? How can I put the people factor to work for me? And I want to talk about 3 specific tactics that you might want to look at. The first thing you can think about doing is mentioning people by name. So if someone on your team has, for example, won an award, presented at a conference, if they've had a paper published, let's say if they've been elected to the board of a local organization, you want to announce that and really celebrate it. And sometimes people say, well, we don't want to be, blowing our own horn. We don't want to look arrogant. I really think this is different. If someone on your team has, say, been elected to the board of the local industry organization, I think it's really good karma, if, for lack of a better word, to put that out there and to celebrate. Because you're not saying we, the company, are fantastic and amazing. You're saying we have some amazing people who are well respected by their peers. Another place you can mention people by name is in your success stories. So when you do a blog post, say you talk about a problem that you solved for the client, assign names to the people that they worked with and really say, hey, he worked with Sarah over in accounting and she was able to get his problem solved in no time. So whenever you have the opportunity, make the person's actual name a part of the story. And whether you use first name only or first name and last name, that depends on your preferences, the circumstances, but I would be consistent. Always use the first name or first and last name. Also, you want to make sure that you have the person's permission to use his or her name before you publish. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So, using real names, tip number 1. Tactic number 2 is to post real photos. So before you reach for another stock photo to accompany your next blog post, think about whether you could take an actual photo of someone on your team and use that instead of the same stock photo that someone has used 500 times over. For example, let's say you're writing a blog post giving 5 tips for great customer service. Now, you could use, I know we've all seen the same stock photo of the woman with the headset smiling, and this has been like, the great customer service lady. But instead of using that, how about getting a picture of someone from your call center with her headset on and smiling? And then the caption could be, Brenda is our rock star in our call center. And she's got all these 5 tips down pat. So it doesn't have to be great professional grade photos. In fact, these photos will actually carry more credibility if they don't look slick and polished like another stock photo. So really think about opportunities to post real photos to accompany that Facebook post or that blog post or whatever it is you're working on. The third tactic I want to talk about is giving your people a voice. Now, one problem that I see, especially in larger organizations, is that content marketing really becomes the turf of the marketing department, and it never goes beyond those walls. People might see the results of all that content marketing, but it really is contained in that marketing or the marketing communications department. So one way you can engage the people factor is to open it up and give others in your organization a voice in all these areas where you're communicating. So, for example, going back to our idea of the blog post on great customer service, why not let Brenda from your call center write the post and put her name on it? And this can be done even if someone is not comfortable with writing. If you approach someone, they might say, "Oh no, I'm a terrible writer. I'm not really comfortable." You can work with them. Assign someone on your marketing team, maybe a copywriter or someone else to really work with them and just to kind of get their ideas and kind of ghostwrite it for them. And then you could put Brenda's name on it. And just think about it. How much more powerful would it be if the reader knew that this content was coming from someone who really walks that walk on a daily basis, rather than someone sitting in the marketing department who is coming up with ideas for customer service? So think about opportunities to give your people a voice in all your major vehicles that you're using. Now, I do want to mention one caveat, and I touched on it before. Make sure you have permission before sharing people's names and images. And that can be really challenging for larger organizations. So you definitely want to run it by your attorney or your legal department to figure out the best way to go about that. Whether it's, I'm actually working with a client who is, is going to be including a waiver in all of their onboarding documents. So when a new employee signs on, they're going to, as part of their paperwork, have a waiver that's saying, yes, you can use my image on Facebook and you can use my name in the blog or whatever. But you do want to make sure that you have permission to avoid any problems. Another objection I sometimes hear, I hear this fairly often, is people say, well, what if we put this person's name out there, put their image out there, and then they leave the company? And my reaction to that, and I try to say this gently, but in essence, I'm saying, so what? So what if this person leaves the company? When they, say you refer to them in a success story, they did work for you at the time, and they were living the principles of your company at the time, and your audience isn't stupid. They know that no one stays in the same job forever, especially these days. And if the person has gone on, doesn't necessarily mean anything negative about your company. It's just kind of the way the world works. So if you're holding back on the idea that, well, this person might leave, kind of think that through and think, would that be is that a reason to hold back from using this person's name or from referring to them in that blog post? Because as we've seen, the people factor can be very, very powerful. So you just need to weigh those pros and cons. So again, for the next week or so, I challenge you to really, really look at what you're working on, or even look at what you've done recently and look at that and say, okay, what are some ways that we could have made this content more personal? How could we have included that people factor? Where could we use names? Where could we use images? And then track that and see how it works for you. And let me know your results. Let me know how the people factor, if it works well for you, and what your results are. Would love to hear from you. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about mixing up your approach to how you share content. Now, we're always on the lookout for best practices. And, one of the biggest questions I get is, what's the best time to post on Facebook? Or what's the best day? Or what are the best topics to cover? And when we learn those best practices, we tend to kind of nail them into place and make them part of our MO, part of our modus operandi. But we really need to be always on the lookout for what's best for us and our businesses, because what is best for the business population as a whole might not be exactly what's right for your organization. For example, something that came up recently, many of us have heard that if you want to get noticed on Facebook, you have to use images. Photos get the most likes, the most comments, and the most shares. And I read recently, and of course I went to refer to this article via search and cannot find it anywhere. I swear it exists. But I read recently a post that talked about how text-only posts that you post on Facebook actually get higher edge rank than either images or links. Now, if you recall, edge rank is Facebook's algorithm that determines which posts are more likely to get seen by your audience. And text-only posts, this person said, have a much higher edge rank than either images or links. So, in other words, if you type in your content with your link and you delete the link preview so that it's just text and then the hyperlink, your post will get seen by more people. Now, I saw this and my first thought was, ew, that's ugly. but I went ahead and tried it. And on the last few posts, I just posted the URL and deleted the preview so that it just came up as a text link. And sure enough, I've been checking my insights and the reach is dramatically higher on those text-only posts. So this is one example of quote-unquote conventional wisdom that we just need to get our feet wet and just test and figure out what works for us. Now, best practices, absolutely. They're great. Always be on the lookout for those. But you need to get under the hood and figure out what's best for you. And the only way to do that is to test, measure the results, and make adjustments as you go along. Okay, campers, that is it for me on this Thanksgiving Day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really, really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our blog at resonancecontent.com/blog, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. If you'd like to email me a question to cover in our tip of the week, you can contact me anytime at rachel@resonancecontent.com. Also, remember, we are giving away 20 copies of Gary Vaynerchuk's latest book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, and you can find out how you can win your very own copy at resonancecontent.com/JJJRH. As always, I'd like to leave you with a quote, and today's is from Oscar Wilde. He says, "Never love anyone who treats you like you're ordinary." And that is true in marketing as it is true in relationships. So your customers will only love you if you make them feel special. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing, and we will see you again next week. Take care.